Hello and welcome to Euphoria. Today I just want to tell you about some building I did recently in Miniland scale. This is quite an unusual scale, for most LEGO builders anyway, so stay with me and see how I got on. I recently went to help the brick people with one of their commissioned builds for a client. This was a custom build for a customer who wanted a building with a lift or elevator to explain how they work. This was going to be a 4-story building. That might not sound like much of a challenge, but as this was for display, it needed to be much bigger than your normal minifig scale building. So the designer, that wasn't me by the way, decided to use Miniland scale. This is the same sort of scale as the buildings and other features that you see at one of the Miniland areas in a LEGO theme park, such as Legoland Windsor. There it's used to create detailed miniature versions of real-world landmarks and scenes. This is much bigger than minifig scale, so in this scale, Miniland figures are about 11 bricks tall, and that translates to something like a 1:17 or 1:20th scale, meaning that the models are roughly 20 times smaller than their real-life counterparts. If you compare this with minifig scale, where figures are about 4 Lego bricks tall, then you can see that Miniland scale is quite a lot larger. In fact, minifig scale translates to a scale of about 1:42, so Miniland scale is over twice the size. I'd like to say thanks to Tom Alfin for these illustrations. He's the guy who wrote the excellent book, The Lego Architect, and I'd like to recommend his site at brickarchitect.com. So, due to the space constraints I have here, my LEGO city won't include the seaside, an airport, amusement park, or anything else that takes up a huge area. Figures are made of LEGO bricks, so they can be jointed using hinge pieces or ball joints, and this allows, to a certain extent, more freedom of design and positioning than with minifigures. For example, you can design figures that appear to be sitting, or with arm, elbow, knee, or other joints that minifigs don't have. I tried to minimise the area allocated to roads and vehicles so I can maximise the amount of space for buildings and maintain a feeling of a compact and quite dense city centre. But also, because figures are made of bricks rather than minifig parts, they can be made to any size, and you can have larger figures, smaller figures, taller figures, children, or indeed brick-built animals and other things that aren't available as LEGO parts. Of course, everything else has to be bigger as well. That also makes things much heavier than you might expect. If you're scaling up each dimension by, say, 3 times, that means the weight would increase by 27 times if the item was just solid bricks. Even a hollow item might be 10 times heavier in this scale. That means that, even though there are more studs, the clutch power of bricks and the support strength of plates is being strained, and the strength of the build becomes much more important. So strengthening techniques such as the use of Technic parts and connections, snot building and so on become much more important. At this scale, you're looking at bricks much more as a building resource. It's almost like the bricks and other elements are little 3D pixels, and you're creating a 3D picture from those pixels. So you're looking at shapes made out of combinations of bricks rather than the shape and size of individual bricks. So let's have a look at the model itself. We were building a model of a 4-storey building with a lift or elevator. At Miniland scale, that very quickly becomes a large and heavy model, so we built it in sections so that it could be taken apart for transportation. Several of us worked on different parts of the model in parallel using copies of the design. Fortunately, other members of the team had already done the design and bought all the parts, so my job was just to get on with building. I worked on building one of the floors of the building and the elevator car. I've never built in this scale before in Lego. I've worked on building some big mocks before that were custom commission builds, but they were at a completely different scale. I normally design and build at minifigure scale, which is the scale used by many Lego sets, which include minifigures. And of course, the Lego modular buildings are at this scale, and therefore so is my Lego city. I found the building process quite enjoyable and almost addictive. Just as I got to a breakpoint, it was very tempting to do just a bit more. This was partly because we were under some time pressure to finish the build. But this was quite intense, as it was sometimes quite difficult to build from the computer model, as there weren't step-by-step instructions, which I can understand, as they take a lot of time to make, and would only be used once. All the details like chairs were all brick built, and of course the figures were brick built and could be placed in more realistic poses such as walking, running or sitting, which are difficult poses to represent using minifigs. In this scale, ceilings are large horizontal planes, so they were made of several layers of plates. We found it was difficult to span large distances without intermediate support, as you would in a real building. So, whereas in minifig scale you could feasibly try to span 16 studs using single long bricks or plates, it became difficult to span 32 or 40 studs in Miniland scale. You need to build up several layers or use some kind of bracing. We created extra pillars to support the ceilings and ensure that the levels of the building above were properly supported. But we worked through most of the issues, and after a bit of adaptation, we managed to complete the build. So here's the main function room. Gather round, please. You can see that things are rather different in the larger scales, and aspects like structural integrity, weight and strength need to be thought about more seriously. Nevertheless, I enjoyed working on this collaborative build, which resulted in an impressively large model with some fun details and features. I was pleased to find out that the build made it safely to its final destination, not in one piece, but several pieces that were successfully reassembled into a fine-looking display model. I'm not sure I'll be using Miniland scale myself. I can see that building in this scale isn't for everyone, and it obviously takes up a lot of room for a subject of any size. But it might be the right scale for dioramas where you want to create something special with a bit more detail. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this quick foray into the world of Miniland scale. I'll be returning to my usual minifig scale and looking again at builds, mocks and updates to my Lego city, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.